Hey guys, Gabe Suarez here, Suarez Tactics. So today we're going to talk about something that I think is really important and that you shouldn't take shortcuts on, okay? It's called the weapons check. Now, originally in the old days, it was called the press check, all right? And I'm going to show you on this original CZ75 what that was supposed to be, all right? Now, um, Cooper was a 1911 guy, and so his whole thing was uh, every handgun should be a 1911 and every 1911 should be a 45. Okay, I get it, but that's not the case. And so what he taught was safety off, finger off the trigger, thumb in the trigger guard, trigger finger here, and then you would press the weapon open and verify whether it was loaded or not. Okay, and then somewhere along the line, you know, the uh, the fearful people. So, oh my God! But you're putting your finger close to the muzzle and everything else. Now, look, mind you, Cooper was teaching this for years, and nobody ever shot their fingers off. But somewhere along the line, somebody decided that, oh my God, we need to be afraid of everything and whatever. Press check is still very viable today if your weapon will support it. Okay. But that was the origins of it, and I think primarily is because in those days there were a lot of people that carried with an empty chamber, okay, for one reason or another. I think even the U.S. military taught that at some point. I don't know, but in any case, it was a viable solution to the issue. If you're going to go in a fight, don't just pick this up. Make sure that you have what you think you have, okay, and it's a viable idea and everything else. Okay, now. For our purposes, weapons check. All right, I don't think that necessarily just checking the chamber is sufficient. So on my SP01, for example, okay, so what I do, all right, I thumb cock, and I will put the thumb on the back of the hammer and the index finger in front of the optic, and I crack open the slide, and I look in the chamber. I happen to have a snap cap here because I was doing dry practice work. Okay, now there were people that were saying, "Wow, that's stupid because it's got a loaded chamber indicator and everything else." Okay, I think that relying on a very, very slight change up here when you can actually look in here, okay, or even touch in here, smacks of a lazy motherfucker. Okay, that's my opinion. All right, so weapons check. Number one, check the chamber. Number two, decock and put it back into its normal position. Number three, check the magazine. Now this magazine happens to be empty because I was doing my dry practice work. Okay, and last of all, check the optic. Okay, this is why we have co-witness, so that you can bring it up and you can go, yep, that dot is still on top of the tritium element of the front sight. Nothing has changed. I'm good to go. If you want to know more about what co-witness is, review my video on co-witness. But that's my weapons check, okay? Chamber, decock, magazine, optic, and I'm good to go, okay? And, it's 1 second of cheap insurance, as my good buddy Mark Fleischman used to say. All right, so now, when do you do that? You do that when you pick up the weapon for the first time in the morning, and you put it in your holster and you go forth to be tactical and so on, okay? If you have to grab it in haste, that's okay. Your chamber check will be the first trigger press, unless you make a habit of regularly unloading that weapon. Then you take steps to make sure it's loaded. Now, when would you be doing that? Well, I recall that when the junior staff were little, I made a habit of unloading the Glock system and leaving the chamber empty and leaving the full magazine in place, just in case, until they got accustomed to this is what this is, and now they're working with it. And then, by I think 10 years old, they each had their own Glock 17 in their own room, so it wasn't a big deal. But in the early days, I did that. So my manual of arms would have been immediately when I pick up the weapon, I work the slide because I anticipate that the chamber is going to be empty. Okay? All right. Now, how do I do this if the weapon doesn't have optics? Okay? All right, so again, regardless of whether there's a chamber indicator or not, I don't care. This is the way I do it, okay? Because when I go to battle, I'm going to be 110% certain of what I have, not relying on a little piece of metal that may or may not be correct, okay? You know, especially if I grab this and, you know, I need to check it. So the first thing, the hammer goes back. It's hard to check a double action with a hammer forward. Okay, I bring these two fingers on top of the slide and I crack it open one-handed and I take a look, okay? If I need to feel for that round, I feel it up there, okay? Then I decock and I check the magazine. This happens to be empty, but I know what I have, okay? And that's it. So in the morning, before you leave the house, you check it. You know, if you're law enforcement, you go in your locker room, you get dressed, you put on your war belt and everything else, check it before you leave that locker room. If you're going to go to the range and you're going to do some dry practice, check it so you don't have an accidental discharge. When you're done with the range, check it so that you make sure that you put your street ammo back in instead of your range ammo, and so on and so forth. Anytime that you have left control of this pistol and you're picking it up again, check it to make sure that nothing has changed from the last time that you set it down, okay? 1 second of cheap insurance. You know, if you fudge that, you will be sorry one day, I guarantee it. Okay, so just do it. All right, peace out.